All right, y'all, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm off air for like 15 minutes, and there's already like 7 new stories that I got to talk about ASAP. So, got some semi breaking news here for you that I wanted to talk about. RFK Jr. got absolutely obliterated and pulverized in the committee hearing. Of course, he's trying to be head of Health and Human Services. And, I didn't know Democrats had this in them, right? Because we've been talking a lot lately about how weak the Democrats have been, and they're so disorganized, and they don't know how to fight back against Trump, and they got all these problems. But like this, they get into this committee hearing with RFK, and they just open the gates of hell on his head. I've never seen anything like this. Is like hard. They were harder on him than I've ever seen him be on anybody else. I've ever seen them be on anybody else. So let's start with this. This is classic RFK, and this is why I can't fucking stand this guy. And even if you are somebody who is anti-vaccine and you've gone down that rabbit hole, even you should not like this guy. Because he started out by praising Operation Warp Speed and calling it, quote, an extraordinary accomplishment, a demonstration of leadership by President Trump. So in other words, that's him saying, who, me, bro? Vaccines? I love vaccines, bro. I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm totally pro-vaccine. No big deal, bro. I mean, I've always loved vaccines, bro. And that's just weasel shit. Like, everybody knows, anybody who's familiar with this guy and familiar with his career knows that that's like one of his biggest issues is being anti-vaccine. And they set up the Children's Defense Fund, which is like an anti-vax group. And he's been all in on this. And there are direct quotes from him from podcasts within the past like 2 or 3 years. Like, he went on Lex Friedman and he said there is no such thing as a safe and effective vaccine that's on the market right now. So you can't do that. You can't make your whole career about being anti-vaccine, and then now that you want a taste of power, you want to be head of Health and Human Services, all of a sudden you're out there and you're like, oh, Operation Warp Speed was awesome. We love that they made the COVID vaccine, and President Trump deserves credit. And actually, no, I'm super pro-vaccine. So he's just a Weasley little liar, man. Like, he's just a Weasley liar. So he starts with that. By the way, again, it shouldn't even be people like me shitting on RFK right now and talking about how horrible he did. It should be the people who are his ideological allies who are anti-vaccine. Why can't you just own it? Why can't you just take that position, stand on it, and argue for it? Like, just do that. But he doesn't have it in him, and be honest. So we start out with that. Senator Bennett absolutely destroyed him. I love it when they like quote him directly to his face, and he doesn't know how to handle it, because when you quote him back to his face, he sounds absolutely mental. So he said, COVID-19, you said that COVID-19 was genetically targeted against blacks and whites, but it spared Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people. And he's sitting there squirming. By the way, on some of these, he tried to deny it. On other ones, he was like, all right, yeah, I kind of did say that shit. He also said, did you say that pesticides make kids trans? Oh, my goodness. On the issue of abortion, he got hammered on flipping on abortion, because basically his whole life he's been pro-choice. And then now, within the last 5 minutes, because he's trying to get a job in a Republican administration, he's like, bro, abortion's not even, it's a tragedy, bro. I'm totally against abortion, bro. I wouldn't leave it to the states to do an abortion. I'd leave it to the woman. That's a direct quote from him from a while ago. That was brought up to him, and he had to squirm and weasel his way out of that, because, again, Trump would be his boss, head of Health and Human Services. He's trying to appeal to the Republican politicians. So he's like, oh, no, that, bro? No, that I totally disagree with that now. Bernie hit him hard. Bernie literally brought into the hearing some products from the Children's Defense Fund. I think that's what it's called. His anti-vaccine group that he set up. And on the website, they're selling literal onesies for babies that say unvaxxed and unafraid. And another one that says no vax, no problem. So this is his group he founded. You know, he's been with them for a long time. Apparently, of course, he had to leave recently. But Bernie brings this up and he's like, you're sitting here telling us you love vaccines. Okay, why is the Children's Defense Fund website selling shit like this? Like, what are you talking about? And, he tried to weasel his way out of that. And then Bernie was like, would you commit to, like, telling them, hey, stop selling this anti-vax bullshit stuff? And his response was, this one obviously got under my skin. Bernie asked him point blank, is healthcare a human right? Yes or no? His response was, quote, I can't give you a yes or no answer. This is what I can't stand about this guy. You want to be head of Health and Human Services, and you can't say, yeah, healthcare is a human right? Like, even a Republican who's, like, intelligent and clever might say, like, yeah, I think it's a human right. I just think we should provide it through the private marketplace, right? Like, you could have weaseled out of it that way, but no, I can't give you a yes or no answer. Oh, my God, that's pathetic. Then get the fuck out of the room. Why are you trying to be head of HHS? You're going to make America healthy again, but do that without giving everybody health care like every other developed country that has already succeeded on this front. Oh, it's just so annoying. Then we have Warnock. Warnock asked him, hey, did you compare the CDC to Nazi death camps? And RFK goes, no, I didn't say that. And then Warnock goes, okay, here's the quote. Oh, bro, I can't. It's just too much. You should go watch the whole thing. You won't regret it. Warren also hammered him, basically asking him, like, hey, do you accept that you're responsible for the 83 deaths in Samoa? So for those of you who don't know that story, this is actually a really dark story. So there was an incident in Samoa where somebody took a vaccine and died. But the problem wasn't the vaccine. The problem, we learned, is that nurses accidentally mixed in a muscle relaxant with the vaccine. And it was the muscle relaxant that ended up killing the person after they got the vaccine. But this, of course, sparked an anti-vaccine backlash because people started thinking, oh no, it was definitely just the vaccine that killed him. It wasn't the fact that the muscle relaxant was mixed with it, right? And so there was like this big anti-vax wave that swept Samoa. Guess who came and took advantage of that story and made the argument, hey, vaccines are bad, after that incident happened? RFK. And then boom, would you look at that, there was a measles outbreak and 83 people died, including children. And so he's largely responsible for that. He's asked if, he takes responsibility for it, and Warren just destroyed him on that. And then he was also asked, he was basically pummeled into the ground for saying that SSRIs lead to mass shootings. So that's antidepressants. He's saying antidepressants lead to mass shootings. Again, he tried to weasel out of it and say that he didn't say that. He absolutely positively did say that. His dodge this time was like, well, we really don't know. But the person who was grilling him, I forget who this one was, some woman, I'm not even sure if she's a senator, but that'd be weird. I feel like everybody's supposed to be a senator there. But anyway, she basically says, like, look, I have personal experience with SSRIs. I was on them for a while when I was depressed. They cleared my head, made me feel better, and I was able to get back to normal life. And anybody who has experience with these drugs will tell you a similar story. You could talk to people who say SSRIs basically saved my life, right? And by the way, this has been studied. The idea that there's no data on this has been studied. The majority of mass shooters are not on antidepressants. And in the instances where somebody's a mass shooter and they were prescribed antidepressants, it is more likely than not, when they do the shooting, they stopped taking their medicine. So they're less likely to do the shooting if they're on the medicine. Why? Because no fucking shit. SSRIs, all it does, it messes with your brain chemistry to release more serotonin, which means those are the happiness chemicals. You're going to feel happier. On what fucking planet can you say, hey, take this pill, it'll release happiness chemicals, therefore it'll make you do mass shootings? It doesn't make, even logically, it makes no sense. Theoretically, it makes no sense. Never mind empirically, where it's been proven that that's not the case. I've always fucking hated that argument. It's made by a bunch of hacks. That's literal, like, Alex Jones level shit to make that argument. Like, oh yeah, the antidepressants are leading for people to kill people. That's right up there with, like, oh, it's the violent video games making people do shootings. Like, shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about. And this is the problem with RFK. He believes in junk science. This is the kind of guy who believes that raw milk is healthier for you than pasteurized milk, even though all pasteurization is boiling the milk to burn out all the pathogens and the germs. That's all it is. And he makes it seem like, that's horrible. Just drink the raw milk. Yeah, go suck off a fucking cow's udder. Let me know how that works for you. You'll be shitting for hours later on, okay? Who are we kidding here? Of course, raw milk is worse. But this is who he is, right? He's an alternative medicine believer, a junk science believer. He wouldn't know a double-blind, placebo-controlled study if it hit him over the head like a fucking anvil. The guy's a joke. The guy's horrible. And he's just postured as, I'm going to take on the establishment by being anti-science, bro. Like, shut the fuck up. It's one thing to actually be anti-establishment and to fight for people. It's another thing to, virtue signal as being anti-establishment when in reality you're just anti-modern medicine. And that's my problem with RFK. So, look, I don't know. I genuinely don't know if he's going to get approved. Before this, I would have said, shit, well, if they got Hegseth approved, they can get fucking anybody approved, right? But watching this, I'm going, the two that are most likely to actually get the axe, RFK Jr. and Tulsi. Those are the two that are most likely. And so we'll see. I don't know which one is less likely. I would guess Tulsi's maybe a little bit more likely to get axed. But after this, maybe even RFK too. We'll have to see. But man, what a horrible performance by him. I mean, he was a fucking deer in headlights, bro. He was not ready for prime time, not remotely. I've never seen the Democratic senators that aggressive, that on point. And the other thing is, which is commendable, is for the first time in my fucking life, I see these people do some research. Like, they actually did some research and were like, you said this thing, you said that thing, this was your position then, this is what you say your position is now. Hey, this makes no sense. Explain that. So I think they did a great job. All right, so I got that for you. RFK Jr., there's some other stuff I wanted to talk about real quick. The former U.S. Senator, Democrat Bob Menendez, has now officially been sentenced to 11 years in prison in his bribery case. Ladies and gentlemen, let's celebrate. Let's pop some champagne. I'm over the moon about this. Because look, there are dark times where we all start to think there's no punishment for anybody who has power ever. That's what it looks like, right? But the thing about Bob Menendez is he's super corrupt, but he also colored outside of the lines, right? Because virtually everybody, almost everybody, 96% of Washington, they're corrupt. But what they do is they follow the proper rules and the procedures, and they make sure, when they take all their campaign contributions, they make sure, hey, some comes from the super PAC, some comes from a corporate PAC, some goes directly to the campaign, and there's some rules around that, but they find a way to be corrupt and serve their donors while coloring within the lines. What Bob Menendez did was so beyond the pale, it was absurd. I mean, the dude had literal, gold bars in a jacket, cash stuffed in a jacket, and he was taking direct bribes. I believe Egypt was one of the countries he was taking direct bribes from, and I believe there were others as well, where it was like they bought a luxury car for Bob Menendez's wife. Literally just no pretense of, hey, following campaign finance rules or whatever. It was literally just, here, you work for us and we'll just keep giving you cash, giving you gold bars, giving you luxury cars, etc. And so he got knocked, he went down, and God bless, man. I hope all these fuckers are nabbed. I don't know how many of them are as stupid as Bob Menendez and as brazen with it. To be fair, I do know one. His name is Donald Trump. Donald Trump is insanely, obviously corrupt, taking $160 million from foreign governments while president in his first term, literally doing a crypto scam on his supporters 2 days before his inauguration. But he's already skated on 91 crimes. Who knows if there will ever be any justice for Trump. But for Menendez, I'm happy he went down, and I hope all the other assholes out there that they can maybe find a way to go after the people who are more subtly corrupt. That's what I would like to see. This is overt, brazen, disgusting corruption, direct corruption. I really hope they could, even in a situation where it's not the clearest quid pro quo ever, like it is with Menendez, I really hope they can start bringing down more of these corrupt politicians like this. Because you honestly don't have a nation if all of your politicians act like Bob Menendez. You don't have a nation anymore, right? You just have gangster, cartel, criminal thugs who run the country. So anyway, happy he went down. All right, let's continue here. Ugh. This is another one, man. This is another one. This is dark. So Trump comes out today, and he says, I'm signing an executive order to instruct the Departments of Defense and Homeland Security to begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay. So what Trump's plan is, we're going to send immigrants to Guantanamo Bay to be held extrajudicially. No due process, no habeas corpus. Put them in there, lock them up, throw away the key. So for a guy who shit on George W. Bush all the time, this really is him taking the worst ideas of George W. Bush and putting them on steroids. Like, Guantanamo Bay was one of the bigger scandals during the Bush years. That and Abu Ghraib, like, doing torture over there, holding people illegally, disregarding the Constitution. That's exactly what he's doing. And now he's raising the stakes and he's saying it's not just for terrorists, it's also for immigrants. And of course, guys, this comes at the same time, 58 people in the Senate voted for the Lake and Riley Act. The Lake and Riley Act says even if you're just accused of a crime, they can round you up and deport you. You don't have to be guilty, just accused of a crime. No due process whatsoever. They can round you up and deport you. Again, same thing we learned this week. Some U.S. veterans were held by ICE. They were accused of being an undocumented immigrant. They weren't. They were held by ICE. Got another story that just came out today. 3 Puerto Ricans, including a toddler, were detained in Milwaukee and taken to an immigration center. So here's what's going to happen, y'all. Even the idea, like, it wouldn't be okay to send these people to Guantanamo, even if it was all undocumented immigrants. It's still not okay, because this is extrajudicial. But I got news for you. It's not just going to be undocumented immigrants. It's not. There's going to be people who are not undocumented that are thrown in there, and they have no process. They have no recourse. It's a nightmare scenario. Who are you going to appeal to? The whole point of Guantanamo is it's extrajudicial. This is a war on civil liberties. This is a war on rights and due process. That's what we're witnessing. This is full authoritarianism. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's as clear as day. All this stuff was already bad enough and shouldn't have been done when we were talking about holding terrorists, really was alleged terrorists at Guantanamo Bay. Now he's upping the stakes. Now it's going to be immigrants as well. By the way, what do you call a place like this where, so you take a bunch of people and you lock them up and you concentrate them in one area? Is there a term for that? Maybe that would be called say a concentration camp? Is that what that would be called? That's right. So guys, this is as dark as it gets. It's super dark. And then finally, what I wanted to talk to you guys about was Trump just signed a new executive order to combat anti-Semitism. It builds upon his 2019 order mandating the so-called IHRA definition, which includes applying double standards to Israel. So basically what that definition was is hey, it's also anti-Semitic to be anti-Israel. That counts as anti-Semitic. If you're anti-Zionist, that counts as anti-Semitic. They use this new, broad, sweeping definition of anti-Semitism. It's totally bogus. Of course, it's untrue, but this is how they're defining anti-Semitism. And this new executive order that he signed has horrible consequences. At the same time, he also decided to fully lean in on deporting any pro-Palestine protesters. They would call them anti-Semitic. In reality, it's just pro-Palestine, anti-genocide protesters. If you're here on some sort of a visa, if you're a legal immigrant or something, and you took part in a pro-Palestine protest, an anti-Israel protest, they will round you up, they will say you're anti-Semitic, and they will kick your ass out of the country. Sign an executive order on that literally today. Literally today. And Michael Tracy points out that some of these violations could result in criminal prosecution of Americans, not just foreign nationals. And he cites specific text in the executive order to those ends. So, this is insane. This is insane. As Tracy also points out, he says, week 1, there was an executive order triumphantly celebrating a return to free speech in the United States. And then week 2, here's an executive order requiring a government-wide crackdown on political speech that they deem anti-Semitic, even though oftentimes this is not anti-Semitic, it's anti-Zionist, it's anti-Israel, it's anti-genocide, it's pro-Palestinian. So he cranked the authoritarian meter up today massively. He may have shattered the authoritarian meter with the stuff that's going on right now. So a bunch of wild stuff, man. Bunch of wild stuff. But anyway, tune into the show tomorrow. We'll have a lot more stuff to talk about, but I couldn't wait on these ones. I had to give it to you guys right now.